Thank you, Orion. Thanks, Siobhan. That was brilliant. Kia ora koutou, Prof Sarah Riley, toko inua, no piritene o kutipuna, katinahu, katipananui atara. So say as well. So I'm very grateful to be here. Thanks for sharing time with us. I'm talking about the button. Oh, let me just try. Maybe I just need to get it going, do I? Oh yeah, great. So I'm talking about, thank you, from the perimenopause cohort that Siobhan kind of introduced earlier. Perimenopause, for those of you that don't know, lucky you. It's a transition to menopause. It happens round about 50, but could be any time really. There's quite a variety. Hormonal changes mean ultimately menstruation ceases. For some, sail through fine. Others, it's a significant physical, social, and psychological disruptor. Some of our participants talked about it like puberty. There's multiple symptoms and debates around, or even calling it symptoms, but multiple debates on how many there are, and they're psychological, social, and physical. When we think about social and cultural, the dominant discourse is one very much of deficit and stigma. So historically, that meant that it was often a hidden time. Some of our participants talk about, oh God, that's probably what my mum was going through when she went mad for those couple of years. So there's a kind of a hidden, it's been hidden really up until recently where there's a new visibility. So, for example, in New Zealand, we had those two books from two Nikis that kind of impacted very quickly and were really great resources. Many people don't sweat it, and this changes everything. Outside of Aotearoa, New Zealand, we've got Davina McCall, as many of you must know, and who has been the face of menopause visibility. There's a little shot of her on YouTube. Make these daily choices and live the life you want to lead. And so there's a kind of new visibility that should be affirmative and empowering, but I recognize this as a form of post-feminism in the sense that it still reproduces deficit. So there's a long history of women being fundamentally flawed in cultural discourse, but post-feminism gives it a twist that we're fixable with hard work. So the deficit discourse is still available in images like the estrogen hormone level, which you will see if you read anything or attend anything about menopause. You don't need to get a little sexy dance with it, but when I found that, I thought, like, oh, keep that one. But you can see estrogen drops until it's just in your feet. Tiny little sexy feet. That's all you've got left. So there's a kind of deficit of like, God, get some estrogen and you're quick. But again, as I said, this sort of fixable thing as long as you're working on yourself. So in this context of kind of difficult experiences, deficit discourse, expectations to work and fix yourself, people turn to tracking apps. So the apps offer a promise of empowerment around bodily control and transformation through self-management, with the idea of being productive or self-optimized. We know from broader research that they're not neutral technologies, but they shape people's understandings of their bodies and selves. To date, know that there's very little about how that might shape perimenopausal management. What we know is very few of these apps actually have a perimenopausal function, and even less have one that's not behind a paywall. So roughly, I'm trying to keep the time and not ad lib, but I Googled for this talk, how many have a perimenopausal function, and up came Massey Research University says, and it was us. So I did some more research beyond asking AI, and it turns out roughly about 55, but no one really knows, of over 2,400. And perhaps that's not surprising because tracking apps are tracking and predicting regular cycles. That's what they want out of everybody because they're easy to predict. So when something becomes relatively unpredictable, then it's quite hard to apply that kind of tracking methodology over it. So we know that there's difficulty, and like one of our participants described it as tracking chaos, which has been one of our kind of favorite quotes. And there's other research that's looked at people tracking for perimenopause and found that actually a noticeable practice is untracking because it wasn't helpful or it's indeed sometimes harmful. The research is also suggesting there are still benefits for learning about the body at this particular time in the context of general lack of knowledge that people still have, and also tools for communication. So in the context of epistemic injustice, medical gaslighting, you could take the phone to the doctor. So our questions were, what are the experiences of perimenopausal users of these apps, and can they generate more affirmative experiences together? We had 24 people, and I'll skip through this quickly because I know I've talked too much. Majority were identified as women, were Pakeha of European origin. We had 10 managing a health condition, which we were quite pleased with because they're often underrepresented in research. So we took all of that talk, which was, I just want to sort of credit the women and non-binary people that were part of our project for their kind of brilliant corridor, and started to think through that talk, through the theory of assemblage, drawing on feminist new materialism more than human theory. So I'm thinking of an assemblage as a combination of material and discursive elements that are in constant interaction with each other. And so there are these kind of emerging affective relationships. The phone pings. I'm like, oh, better have a look, or better not in front of everybody else. So there's all cycles of feelings and emotions, and then maybe I'm tapping it in and it's recording the data. And there's kind of cycles of all sorts of interactions happening all the time. In the theory, a healthy assemblage is one that's got lots of connections, because the more connections you can have, the more capacities for action you can have. So it's a really actually quite a helpful little tool for thinking about what's healthy in a complex world. As I said, assemblages are constantly dynamically interacting with each other, and so they're in flow, but sometimes you might get what they call a line of flight into a completely different assemblage. So using that kind of theoretical framework, I started to map the perimenopausal map as people are talking about it being currently experienced, and then how they talked about what they would like as a kind of imaginary line of flight. So this is how, let's see if I can make it look. I was hoping to be able to zoom in and out. Well, so we had about 6 themes. This is preliminary work. Starting with health as hard work. So health was hard work for most of our participants. There'd been a lifetime of in battle with their bodies for some people. There'd been management of many health conditions. There had been pain, PMS, a women's lot, with little support. So some people, though, their bodies had been kind of more part of them. There'd been a kind of alignment of self and body had been running nicely. But perimenopause hit. So remember, some people go through fine, but the people that come to a project like this are people that are not in the fine department. So perimenopausal hits, and whatever relationship we've had with your body, it's changed. And there are fundamental, big and difficult challenges at a level of body, mind, and social. People get anxiety, people are having rages, people are wondering if they're going mad, people can't sleep, all sorts of things. And so there was a big question about what's happening and why, and is it going to get worse? Will it get better? Am I going to turn into my mother? All of this is cycling through in interaction with the yellow stickers, which is poor reproductive healthcare. So what I have learned from doing women's health research is we just have to get over, the first thing we need to say is no one listens to women even now. Cannot believe it, but still saying it. So there's a lot of like not being believed, having to self-advocacy, no services, even if you are believed, terrible kind of actual options. You know, you can have this thing that they'll stick in you that will hurt and might work, or this pill that might give you cancer a bit later, we're not sure. Pick your options, darling, and you've got $70 to pay for it. You can come back and have another $70 to see the doctor again if you want to think about it more deeply. And rolling through there are stigmatizing norms of weight stigma, racism, valuing of women only when they're young and fertile. So tech offers a solution to mediate through that. And thinking about the functioning empowerment, the green one, it allows people to function in a world that's not designed for them. They can start to learn a bit more about their bodies. It's kind of discovery is sometimes good. There's planning, there's management. There's like, oh, I'll bring my period pants because I'm going on holiday. I could probably need them. Or things like, I have my working from home day that day, so I won't bleed out on the public transport when I'm going to work. These are the kind of conversations that are happening. It also means you can take it to the doctor. They might get believed. So there's a sort of functional empowerment happening. But capacities are reduced in a range of ways. There's loads of labour, and there's no idea whether it's going to pay off or not, or the data entry. There's a sense of misfitting. It's often about fertility or sex. And while older women are allowed to have sex, just saying, a lot of our participants had other things on their mind than optimising their sex life. And people were kind of limited by the whole talk about fertility. It was kind of the drive of you're a mother or you're going to be a mother, that's kind of your role. And the tech itself was ethically compromised, and there was particular concerns around what was happening to data. Does it make women in the States vulnerable if it's collecting data in relation to prosecutions around abortions? So the apps were themselves ethically compromised. In the imagined world, where we could be, if we tried hard enough, I guess, I'm just going to quote from a participant, women should be adored as wonderful goddesses and celebrated. So women can have big feelings and it be understood that this is just part of what it is to have this kind of body, and it's pretty good, and we can support and nurture when it feels difficult. That, as one participant said, the menstruating bodies can be understood as trauma. That perimenopause could also, while difficult, also be a time for learning and growth, of shredding what you don't need, of stepping into your new self. For part of that to work, women need to be believed. We need to have good healthcare for menstruators, a critical consciousness, kind of raising against taboos, opportunities to talk. Our participants really valued opportunities to talk and then tried them out at work, tried them out in the car with their girlfriends when they were going on holiday, started to explore what it's like to actually talk about things that they were keeping quiet. And broader, obviously, reduction of racism, sexism, fat-shaming, etc. And a tech world that puts health first rather than business first, that's ethical and that's local, that connects to local services, local values, that kind of thing. We're thinking in that sense, then, as long as, along with planning and managing and helping kind of function in this world, people could also have some kind of wider self-acceptance, wider self-actualizing forms of empowerment. And for all of that to happen, the tech needs to enhance capacities, reducing labour, doing the work for them. Often they're still like little scientists working out all of what that data means and what it can predict. Sometimes texting the husband to say, don't come home for half an hour and bring chocolates. And also being kind to you. So there's a lot of kind of telling you off vibes in these apps. So a little bit of nurturing and respect. So the current assemblage is that menstruating bodies are experienced often as hard work in the context of poor reproductive care, epistemic injustice, and wider social stigma. And in that sense, the apps offer a functional empowerment to operate in a world that's not designed for you. But being business first model, it is themselves ethically compromised. The line of flight that we can imagine is one where menstruating bodies are cultural treasures, that there is good health care for women and other menstruators, and that tech is ethical, local, and has a collective approach to health, so that we could see menstruation and perimenopause as a time for growth and enhanced capacities. Thank you.